There are many unspoken rules in life, like waiting your turn in line, or saying hello and goodbye, or not chewing with your mouth open, or putting your shopping cart away at a grocery store. These rules are never really talked about anywhere or enforced. You're just expected to know and follow them. Yeah, legally, you don't have to follow these rules, but you're kind of a dickhead if you don't. And there are many similar rules in the Pokemon community, so whether you're new to this fandom, or you've been here a long time, I think it would be fun to talk about a few of them. These are a little different though, since in real life, unspoken rules are mainly social constructs, so it's impolite to not follow them. However, for most of these, you're only really affecting your own playthrough, so you aren't being a nuisance or anything if you break these rules. It's mostly about what the majority of Pokemon players do. Nobody ever really talks about these rules, but like 90% of players follow them, so don't feel bad about breaking these. Okay? Keeping your starter Pokemon. When people pick their starter Pokemon, you're sort of expected to keep it, and most people do. It's the Pokemon that you're starting your journey with. It just doesn't feel right releasing it or putting it in the box to never be used. And this mainly only applies to first playthrough, since if you're doing a challenge run or something, I would get why you would put them away. If I do a second playthrough though, I usually pick a different starter, just to keep things fresh. But people who put their starters away on a first playthrough scare me. Starter Pokemon are all pretty great in battle, and they have super appealing designs. I feel like there's something for everyone. There's always a cute, cool, or tough one. So for someone to not use one is a bit strange. Even if you don't like them initially, you can grow a sentimental attachment to these little critters, even if they are just a bunch of pixels on a screen. Even when I had an exact duplicate dual typing on my team, being Ceruledge when I had a Skeledirge, I still kept both of them because although I didn't like Skeledirge's design, that's my day one, you know? I can't just throw them out. They've been here through thick and thin. They're meant to be your ride or die. I feel like the percentage of people who don't use their starter Pokemon is very slim, so I think this is a pretty solid unspoken rule. Saving before fighting a legendary. A lot of people would consider this save scumming in other games, but in Pokemon, everyone sort of has this mutual understanding that this is acceptable. Catching legendaries can be a bit of a pain sometimes. Maybe you run out of Pokeballs after failing to catch it multiple times. Or maybe it wipes your team because of how strong it is. Maybe you accidentally faint it because you were trying to get it to have a slither of health left. Whatever it may be, people are very understanding of this. You could also just be shiny hunting, which is totally fine too. When playing through the Sword and Shield DLC, I made the mistake of not saving before fighting one of the Reggies, and I accidentally killed it. And although I didn't even want to use it, it still really stung losing the chance to catch it. They're just nice little collectibles. You only really get one shot of catching them in each playthrough, so you might as well do it, right? I think this can also apply to saving before a huge fight. I know tons of people save before fighting a gym leader or trainer. It's just a lot more convenient to save right then and there rather than having to walk the walk of shame back to where you lost. I also just like saving because that means my Pokemon don't level up, which means the fight isn't getting any easier each time I lose. I know I can do it. I don't need bigger numbers. If I die enough times, I'll eventually outsmart my opponent. I saw a dream that wouldn't end. Try to use Pokemon from their region. When playing through a new region, I imagine most people are super fascinated by all the new Pokemon that are getting introduced. So, naturally, people try to use the brand new Pokemon on their team. It would be kinda lame if I played through Alola only using Pokemon from Gen 4 and under. Like, it's a whole new region with a whole new set of Pokemon. Go use them. Go experiment. Why use Pokemon that you're already familiar with? Like, yeah, Gengar is an amazing Pokemon, but using one on every playthrough gets kinda boring, doesn't it? Of course, if you never had the chance to use an older Pokemon before, I get it. It's still technically a new experience for you. But even for me, I do my best to use Pokemon from the current gen. It keeps the journey memorable. I know tons of people were mad whenever Unova did this. They forced everyone to use Pokemon from Unova, and admittedly, when I was a kid, I was pretty mad about it too. But now I really like that they did that. It forced me to use Pokemon that I never would have thought of using, like Timepole. This little creature, I didn't expect anything from it, but it ended up becoming such a beast. Seismitoad's actually the GOAT. I love it. It makes you love new Pokemon. If they did do it again though, I think people would get mad. And to be fair, I think it should be up to the player to choose what Pokemon they want. Saving your Master Ball. In almost every Pokemon game, we eventually are given a Master Ball. And even though we all get one every time, I'm willing to bet that most of us almost never use it. And that isn't because we see it as cheating, it's because we're always waiting for the perfect time to use it. But that perfect time doesn't exist. So we just hoard it for all eternity, waiting for a moment that will never come. You only get one for every playthrough, so you gotta make it count, right? You can't just waste it on some ordinary Pokemon. It would feel like such a waste. I'm always super worried that I'll see a shiny Abra and I only have one shot to catch it before it teleports. That's when I would use my Master Ball. Or say I find a shiny and I use up all of my Pokeballs trying to catch it. That's when the Master Ball shines. But most of the time, I'm pretty stocked up on Pokeballs, so thankfully Thankfully, I never get in those types of situations. I think there's also a good amount of people who use it on the box legendary just because, it makes the most sense. And there's no shame in that. I'm willing to bet that most of the people who did use the Master Ball did use it on the box legendary. But I can almost guarantee you, if you go to your older Pokemon save files, you'll see the Master Ball just sitting there. And that's okay. We all have one. Keeping all of your Pokemon around the same level. I'm pretty confident in saying that most people follow this rule. It's way easier to follow now because of the EXP share always being on, and that's a whole nother thing. But in older games where you didn't always have access to it, most of the time, people are grinding levels to get their Pokemon up to speed with everyone else, keeping all of them around the same level. You want to be able to use multiple different types of Pokemon for different situations. And while you could just have one insanely high-level Pokemon steamroll through everything, you're kind of ruining the game for yourself. Pressing A and winning can only give you so much entertainment. The game also deters you from doing this, since after a certain point, if you don't have enough gym badges, your Pokemon won't listen to you if they're too high of a level. And what's even the point of catching a whole team of Pokemon if you aren't going to use like half of them? I feel like that's most of the fun. Getting this entourage of little critters to fight for you, helping them become stronger. Why focus on just one? Having a catching ritual. When catching a Pokemon, tons of people have their own little version of a ritual to help guarantee the capture. Is it an actual game mechanic in the game? No, but a lot of people still do it. You might not even be aware that you're doing it. I'm not exactly sure how this all started. Maybe it could just be a nervous habit that we all default to. Even if you've never heard the playground rumor, chances are you still do it. Some people press the A or B button in time with every shake of the Pokeball, or maybe they just press it over and over again, spamming it until the Pokemon is caught. Some people even just hold a button down, or maybe you could just pretend to not care about it. Even if I'm not fully aware of which method I use, I'm fairly certain that I do at least one of these, but it's become almost second nature that I don't even notice when I do it anymore. Honestly, I think I just sit there now and scream at the ball or something. I don't even know, man. I just let nature take its course. I'm losing it. Saving at the Pokemon Center. After a long play session, it's always in your best interest to save the game. You don't want all that progress to go to waste now, do you? You're able to save wherever you want, really. But unless you're in a hurry, something just draws us to save at the Pokemon Center. It's intended to be a resting spot, and it's just nice to open your game and have the peaceful Pokemon Center theme playing. You also have access to the Pokemart and PC. It's just overall pretty convenient. Some people even have a specific spot that they save at, whether that's the center of the Pokemon Center, the door, the PC box, right in front of Nurse Joy. You gotta have a spot. There's no way you don't. I always choose the center because it just feels right, and also it just looks good aesthetically. You get to stand dead center of where the Pokeball logo is. How could I not want to save there? Saving multiple times. While we're on the topic of saving, I can't be the only one who saves the game immediately after saving it just to be extra sure. I don't know why I don't have faith in it, but I just want to be extra sure. There's no worse feeling than making a ton of progress only to realize you lost all of it because you made the mistake of not saving. It's such a punch in the gut. And this doesn't necessarily only apply to Pokemon. I think a lot of us do the same thing in other games, but in Pokemon especially. Buying Pokeballs in sets of 10. Pokeballs are something essential to everyone's journey. Without them, you can't catch any new Pokemon to add to your team. So of course, you gotta make frequent stops at the Pokemart to restock. And I'm sure that many of you know that if you buy 10 Pokeballs at the Pokemart, you get a free Premier Ball on the house. So to get the most bang for your buck, tons of people only buy Pokeballs in bulks of 10. It might not be a lot. If you bought 50, you would only get 5 Premier Balls, and they have the same effectiveness as a Pokeball, but it's always just useful to take advantage of that deal. And in case you didn't know that, there you go. Free tip. I don't think the game ever tells you about it outright. When I was a kid, I always wondered where the Premier Balls in my bag were coming from because I would just mash through dialogue at shops. Not a lot of people mention it, but it's not like it's a secret or anything. It's just not something that you immediately think of when giving someone tips. The Premier Ball does look pretty cool though. The white ball with the red trim looks amazing. Fighting the trainers at the gym. Every time you enter a gym, there's always an entourage of trainers waiting there for you to fight them as a bit of a warm-up. Sometimes you're forced to fight them all, and other times you can just walk around them. But most people choose to fight them even if they don't have to. Even purposefully failing the puzzles just to get every last one. It's always good to get a little bit of extra XP, especially right before fighting the gym leader. Fighting them also just lets you gauge whether or not you're ready to face the gym leader. If you're struggling to defeat these guys, chances are you aren't ready to take on the actual gym leader. Repeating types in your party. When building your team, a rule that goes without saying is try to catch a wide variety of different types, and do your best to not overlap types with other party members. Say, for example, you catch a Breloom. That fills out your grass type and fighting type slots on your team. So try not to put another grass or fighting type on the team because then it would just be obsolete. It's a little different if the Pokemon isn't just a grass or fighting type. Say you want a Lucario. That's a fighting type, yeah, but it's also a steel type. But it that still just feels wrong to have 2 of them. But because it has that steel typing, it feels a little less wrong. Of course, if you really like a Pokemon, like a lot, it might bypass this little rule completely. But I think in most cases, people try to avoid stacking types. I seem to have the most trouble with this rule when it comes to fire, water, and grass types, because whenever I choose my starter in a new region, I have no idea what Pokemon to expect, or what the starter's dual typing will even become. So if I choose a fire starter, and I come across a super cool fire type later in my journey, yeah, I could catch it, but that slot would be better used on a Pokemon type I already don't have on my team. You want to be ready for any situation, and it gets even worse if that fire starter also evolved into a fire ghost type, because now, guess what? My Ceruledge is obsolete because my Skeledirge just so happens to share the fire ghost typing with it. What the hell did I do? I kept both of them because I loved Ceruledge, but I also loved my Skeledirge. But god, it was useless having both of them on the same team. Genning. If you weren't familiar with what genning is, it's short for generating. I'm just using slang. Okay, no, but for real, genning or generating Pokemon is just lame. Again, part of the fun is catching the Pokemon yourself, looking at its imperfections, and despite those imperfections, you do your best to make that Pokemon a damn good Pokemon. But if you just gen them to have perfect stats, you get rid of that attachment and that process of just building them up to being a super strong Pokemon. The whole thing is just a huge taboo in the Pokemon community, especially in the competitive scene. People get called out for cheating all the time, and I don't really want to get into it because I'm gonna go on a whole tangent, but I don't necessarily blame the people playing in competitive. I mostly blame the Pokemon company for not putting more measures to stop this and make it so people don't have to gen. They could just put everyone on an equal playing field. Regardless, most people do look down on genning. Hacked shiny Pokemon. While people's thoughts on genning might be a little all over the place, what most people can agree on is that hacking shinies into your game is pretty lame. Part of the fun of catching shiny Pokemon is losing your sanity trying to find a fictional critter with a different texture, and if you don't want to make that sacrifice, you don't deserve the shiny. The pain is a part of the process, okay? It's for the rarity. And the hit of dopamine you get after finally getting that shiny is just unmatched. It's awesome. Hacking in shiny Pokemon is kind of like going into creative mode in Minecraft and just giving yourself a ton of stuff. Like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want, but everyone's gonna judge you for it, even if they don't say it outright. Cheating is just lame. And it's even lamer if you brag about those shinies you cheated in. You're not a shiny hunter, you're a fraud. I wouldn't even consider myself a shiny hunter, but even I have that sentiment. Something I didn't know people did was use PK Hex to make their egg shiny and send it to people and make it seem like they're lucky. I was told by an Alex Matrix that someone did that to A-Drive, another Pokemon YouTuber. Apparently he did this series about 4 years ago where he would just like take eggs from viewers and hatch them live, and someone traded him an egg that ended up hatching into a shiny Grookey. Whoa, crazy, right? I mean, what are the odds of that? It even has 6 perfect IVs. That viewer must have some insane luck. For some reason though, the viewer made the egg hatch holding a Master Ball. Like, how much more obvious can you get? W A-Drive for releasing the hacked shiny. He's a better man than me. I don't think I could have done it. Even if I know it's hacked, it just feels wrong to release a shiny. It's like throwing away a ceramic plate or a metal fork. Like, yeah, some situations call for it, but it doesn't make it feel any less wrong. I do separate them from my legit shinies though. I put the real ones in the shiny box and the fake ones in the box of shame where they belong.